Welcome. My name is Kenyon Mau. I'm with Emerald Resource Group, and I'm here to talk about something that Justin and I have been talking about for a while. Several months ago, after one of our meetings here, I was asking Justin, is there something in particular that maybe he could think of that maybe the clientele here would really be interested in? He goes, we talk a lot about the technology. We talk a lot about some of the things we're learning. We're talking about how we can do Infosec for social justice, as we just learned from Amy and whatnot. So, he said, what about how do people get into that? How do people get into Infosec? And looking around the room, I think a lot of people here are already in, and others I know have talked to some of you are interested in trying to break in. So what I've tried to do is basically go back through my experiences in helping people get into and find jobs within information security, as well as other thinkers within InfoSec. And basically what I have found is that it seems to really make sense to me, because some of the things we're going to talk about here this evening in the course of my presentation are things that I've been telling people for decades of how to try and get to where they want to go. So I thought I would call this breaking in, or how to get into InfoSec, and hopefully some of you will pick up on the red-blue look of this. So basically, what I'm here to talk about this evening is that, especially as I look around, the people in this room, and I think about people that I've worked with over the years, there's no one way to get into information security. So, there are different roads that could lead to the same endpoint, and there are many different ways that what I say here is the road more followed. You might see. Some of what you hear tonight is like, well, that's what people are doing. I'm already seeing people doing that, and even some of the people in this room, and I would say that's right, and that's why it's kind of working for them. So there are a lot of different ways that we'll talk about kind of globally that can help you kind of get into that kind of area. And it's okay, because at the end of the day, it's about essentially about people, and it's about you trying to find that next opportunity. It's also about connecting with others who can help you either now or somewhere down the road. So it's about also trying to put yourself in the right position, or as they say in real estate, it's all about location, location, location. So we're just trying to make sure we put you there. So let's start with how do you start with this, or what are some of the things to kind of think about? And I know, like I said, I know many of you are already in InfoSec right now, so it's an idea of taking this away as people approach you in your organization saying, hey, I'm interested in getting into InfoSec and the like, is that, and I'm not telling you anything you probably already don't know, and that is the simple fact that InfoSec is going to be here to stay. Doing some research here to try and get some of the latest and greatest information. Got some information from ISACA that basically estimates that there are about 40,000 unfilled InfoSec jobs every year across the country. And if you kind of multiply that out, that could change and become something more like 2 million that are going to be needed by 2019. So we're basically just a little over a year away from that. So it's going to be interesting to see if organizations are going to clue in and start making IT security an even bigger priority than it already is, or if that's going to be a battle that's going to be continuing to be fought here. So, but there's a lot of empty desks right now in that. So the good news is, not only for those of us that are already in it and working now, opportunities for growth will certainly be there, but also for those that are looking to get in some way, shape, or form, the opportunities abound for you. So when I talk to my kids and try and help them understand something, and and it doesn't work out quite the way they thought it would, I like to say to them, there are many ways to get to LA. So just as with kids, I like to think that there's also the case with getting into Infosec. So, basically, there's no one way, as I said a moment ago, to get into the arena, and many of you in this room, could probably share stories of how you came in, and there would be some similarities and some differences. So, like I said, there's no one way to go it, but there are some commonalities, or there's some common themes that we're going to discuss this evening that will help increase the likelihood of that sort of thing. And by the way, as I'm going along, if you have any questions, feel free to question along. You don't necessarily have to wait till the end there. And as I look back on this as an HR professional, it's very similar to other positions, not even necessarily relegated only to Infosec, that follow many of these same themes in terms of trying to increase likelihood of trying to get in and be seen in whatever it is they're trying to do. But but many of these themes are very intertwined. Okay, so what I find is very interesting in terms of the coalescence is a lot of this is going to be based on one pillar of education, another of experience, and then another of information sharing, which is obviously something that we're trying to do right here, right now. So, at the end of the day, it's all good. So, one thing to think about, and again, I'm thinking about this, I'm trying to put myself in the position of someone who is on the outside looking in to get into Infosec, is that, and this is all good stuff for you, is that what we find here is that, information security is an advanced and interdisciplinary area. I mean, it is touching a lot of different areas of IT, like systems administration, network administration, to a certain extent even apps development. The idea just simply being that there are many ways of getting in and many areas of exploring and even going back to your roots, depending on how you might get in here. And it's been my experience in talking to people over the years that probably the infrastructure is probably the best way, or the most common way, I should say, that people have found their way into that, how they found their way into information security. So it makes sense because information security has a heavy emphasis on infrastructure. So where does that come from? All right. So, and again, shouldn't come as any surprise. People are going to be able to come to Infosec through things like school, university, colleges, certification courses, technical schools, or maybe you started with something else and eventually moved your way into information security or even on-the-job training. How many times or how many people here have had to, you started in something maybe as a sys or network admin, and then along the way you picked up information security? Yeah, a number of people have done that. So that is a very common way of building on that. So it's a good thing, I think, that there's a lot of different ways to getting into it, and typically the infrastructure way tends to be, you're already working on websites, you're already working on the routers, the switches, the firewalls, all the guts to try and make all that happen, and you kind of go at it from there. But at the end of the day, it's about experience. So it is being able to demonstrate in the course of a conversation with someone, whether you're talking about someone in the employment industry, you're talking to a potential hiring manager, or just someone else that could potentially be that conduit into an organization that has a need for information security, is what kind of work product can you demonstrate that you've touched, okay? So what have you done? What are you currently doing? Those types of things. But I would, unlike a lot of, people, I would make the argument that obviously if you're doing something in a practical business application, that's certainly the first step. But I know some of you, or some folks that I've talked to, have found themselves in a situation, well, how do I get the business? So, if you have a lab or something that you do at home, so it's the idea of, I do this on my personal time. is going to be, it certainly can't replace or trump practical experience, but it's certainly a good replacement for it when it comes to being able to say, hey, I've done some stuff on my own, it's not all book learnedness and that sort of thing. So if you think about it this way, whether you're experienced or not, it's about being able to demonstrate that you're doing it in your own time. What are you doing in your own potential lab or area outside of work? Certainly work related is going to be important, but it's also about what are you doing on your own time. And even to that end, it could come down to what are you running. So it's a case of, okay, are you working in a fairly sophisticated self-lab, or where you're having servers, racks of servers, and you've set up a whole infrastructure, or are you just running something off of a PC? Now, again, with all of the tools that are available, I mean, that can certainly be having running just off a PC or something like that as your server or whatever can certainly work in your advantage. So I don't want to be able to say that won't help you, but to be able to show that you're using more practical tools, even if you're using all the various cherry pies and the like there, would certainly also be, as part of your explanation, will help you when it comes to what's the environment that you're running, and then what experiments are you running. So, I mean, are you playing with something? Are you taking it just beyond, there's learning it and learning it on your own, which is a good thing as well, but also are you taking it and trying to apply it to solve a business problem, maybe something that you've seen, maybe you went to a conference and you're trying to figure out on your own how that might work. So being able to demonstrate your ability to apply what you're learning in a practical application will certainly come into play here. Environment, comes in as kind of like I was saying before. And then at the end of the day, being able to apply what you're learning. So in the course of a conversation, hey, I learned this. I've learned there's a new spin on Splunk or something along those lines, are going to be the types of things that may end up capturing somebody else's attention, and you'll see where that kind of comes into play here in a moment. Any questions so far? I mean, it's pretty straightforward here, I think. But when you think about it, and this comes down to whether you're talking to someone like myself, hiring manager, or anyone else, the thing that that will help someone is help your case is always being able to show that you're someone that's really immersed in what you're doing. You're living and breathing it. That you're able to demonstrate what you're able to do. So these are just examples of, but at the end of the day, you want to be able to demonstrate that you have a passion for what you're talking about. And this goes back to something I was saying a moment ago. It doesn't matter what your discipline is, being able to get across to someone that you have a passion about what you're doing will always win the day. So what I'm trying to come together here is that being able to actually show some excitement about what you're learning, show some excitement about what you're applying to. And those are the things that if you can get someone else excited, guess what? You arguably increase the likelihood that you're going to be able to take things further. So when we start talking about one of the things that's, when it comes to experiential learning, there are a lot of different ways of getting to that, but the key is going to be being able to show that you have a true passion for what we're talking about. So now, the other thing that kind of comes into play here is a little bit of, so where do you go, all right? So what that means is, where do you go to do a variety of different things? Where do you go to get new ideas? Where do you go to talk to others that is interested in Infosec in this particular case, or maybe a specific subdivision of Infosec as you have? Are you going to groups or meetups, such as what we have here at NEOISF? Are you going to seminars? Are you going to, how many were at the Security Summit last week? Good stuff, right? So, and again, not that if you didn't go, that's a bad thing, but being able to go to those types of places will certainly help you. Going to conventions. How many went to DerbyCon? Or how many would want to go to DerbyCon? So it's even more. So you get the idea that being able to go out and kind of refresh and see what other people are doing will certainly help as well. So, and then on your own, it's a case of, what kind of books, what kind of e-zines, magazines, blogs, white papers, all those types of things are you trying to do, or are you using to generate new ideas, maybe even, supplement some of the things that you're doing in your laboratory. Again, it's not only reinforcing the idea of the passion that you have and that you're trying to demonstrate in all of this, but also you're trying to show learning. Because more often than not, a hiring manager is going to be looking to you to be able to say, okay, I don't want to always have to tell you exactly what to do, especially in Infosec. In many cases, they're expecting you to come and tell them what's going on. So there's kind of a subtle, if not unnecessarily explained or implicit, idea that, you're going to be keeping up on what's going on in the world, whether that be through more passive events like the readings and so forth, the blogs, or are you going to be interacting with others that have varying degrees of expertise and interest in other areas and sharing ideas. So learning is certainly going to be another area that is going to be very important for those looking to break in. I always get asked the question, what about certs? What about certifications? As a matter of fact, we were just talking about that here earlier. And, I think certs matter. I think they do. I think they're a good thing. However, and I'm saying this because I think most people in the room would agree with me, so this is more of just reinforcing something that you probably already know, and hopefully are passing this on to those that you might know that are looking at maybe in school or something like that, certs are good, but they're no substitute for experience. So to the extent that you can get a practical experience, again, going with either practical work experience, internships, externships, those types of things, or or you're doing something in an internal lab in your home or something like that, that will certainly help. But the certifications overall are a good thing. So as I've told many a person, they're better to have than not to have. However, and this is something that I find many people approach me about, is to say, well, maybe it's time for me to look somewhere else because not all organizations will value certifications the same. Has anyone else found that to be the case? Some place where you find it's important and maybe they, rightly or wrongly, they're saying, well, maybe not. You don't find it nearly as important. And again, I'm not here to say who's right or who's wrong or anything of that sort. All I'm trying to say is that, I get the question of, should I get certifications? Should I, spend the money to do that even if they're not able to do that? And I would say, on the whole, you're going to be better off if you do than if you don't. But that, of course, at some level, every situation is different, and you've got to be somewhat thoughtful about what yours is, and does it make economic sense for you to do that if resources are not available to help you with that. Though certainly last month we had a presentation about how to work with SANS and all the opportunities they have to try and make it work for people. So you never know. So then the next question I usually get is, okay, so what cert should I get? And so I say, that really depends on the area and experience level that you're at. Now again, we're talking at this more from a entry level or outside looking in kind of situation. And again, broad sweeping generalization, those that have already gotten certs outside of what I'm about to express, that's fine. I mean, it's all good. But again, I usually get questions about where should I start, what should I go with, and if you're really looking to break in, the Security Plus, the Network Plus, CCNA, CCNP, MCSEs, all those sorts of things will certainly, be very helpful. But at the same time, you're thinking about long term, and many of the people in this room I know have the CISSP. If you're looking at a position that might involve auditing, maybe the CISA, or if you're looking or thinking about somewhere down the road of becoming a manager, maybe the CISM will be something that you'll be thinking about down the road. And for those for those of you that don't know, but like the CISSP, you need 5 years of experience typically. Now, granted, depending on your level of education, that may knock a few years off, but it's really hard to get the CISSP if you don't have the experience. So to help you get the experience from a certification standpoint, then the what I call like the lower level fruit might be more advantageous.
The CISSP also has an associates.
Okay.
That's a program that if you don't have the required number of years, you can still get a certification as soon as you have that. It was 5 years or 4 years with a bachelor's degree.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So, which again, for those that have the bachelor's, would be a good thing. Of course, then again, you get into the educational thing. So, for those that may not, because not everyone has that opportunity. And then, of course, the SANS opportunities, whether you're talking GSEC, GPEN, GWAT, all those other various things. It seems like there's an alphabet soup of various certs that are out there. So, that's all for another time. But you get the basic idea of some that will show a level of commitment to InfoSec at the various levels of someone's career that could be very important from the standpoint of being able to show a commitment, being able to demonstrate the passion that you have for InfoSec, and moving forward from there. Obviously, it's not a etched in stone roadmap, but it certainly doesn't hurt. So then, one of the last things that helps as well, and especially as you might be someone looking to break in and get into InfoSec, and you're looking kind of, all right, what should I be trying to do? Planning for it ideally, is I look over the horizon, and it's basically the idea of, I call it sending the elevator back down, and that is being able to share the information. And a moment ago, we were talking about coming to events like this, or larger events like the Information Security Summit, or even something larger like a DerbyCon or any of the other conventions that are out there for InfoSec. And once you start having some ideas, trying to share them and give back to the community, whether it's through speaking or writing, volunteering, which is very popular. And a good way, if you're like, okay, how is one way for me to get some practical experience? And sometimes that's just volunteering. We've heard some good presentations over the time about various groups that look to having volunteers help them with their mission and whatnot. But the idea of trying to expand and deepen your understanding of InfoSec, this kind of just goes back to, does a couple of things. It goes back and it reinforces the idea of passion. It also reinforces to a certain extent the idea of learning, but now we're doing something different, and now we're sharing. There's an old saying that to really understand something, you need to teach it. So putting yourself into a position where you can talk about something that you've maybe done in your own personal lab, if you're not in an InfoSec opportunity, or something of that sort, can also certainly raise your viability as may not necessarily be a subject matter expert, but you could certainly show yourself to be someone who's knowledgeable about something that you can then parlay into something more lucrative for what you're looking for. So hopefully that helps in terms of kind of, like I said, sending the elevator back down, but also helping you stay fresh as well. So to kind of recap a little bit, I mean, hopefully that, if you don't remember anything else from this presentation, there are going to be three things that you will hopefully take with you. That understanding that all things being equal are tangible, as well as very intangible things that hiring people and people like myself that broker these opportunities look for, and that's basically passion, in what you want to do, the ability to show that you're learning and you're able to apply what you learn, and then the opportunity to basically share. Okay? So passion, learning, sharing. So with that, it's that infamous moment. Questions? Yes, sir.
So I'll add one more comment based on what I kind of see out there, is where in the role I'm in, I'm seeing a lot more where we've got normal network and security people, and they're used to like the ones going and pushing the buttons and doing the things.
Yep.
Because of that entire lack of personnel from a broad sense, as you were talking about, too many people, we're seeing more and more need for automation. So as you think about trying to get to the point where you emphasize your career skills and elevate your career skills, focusing on those technologies that can help with the automation. So it's not a person that's pushing a button, but you're the guy who's designing the thing that pushes the button, is really what the next step is going to be.
And that's an excellent point. And that goes to something I really wasn't talking too much about, but it brings up the point, and that is, and I think many of us in this room will certainly be able to go, oh yeah, been there, done that. And that is, many organizations still haven't quite figured out what to do with Infosec. What are you guys? What do you do? I mean, you're there to protect the walls and the firewalls and everything, but they don't get how we do it. So, you know, in some cases, that's what many executives I've talked to, that's what they think Infosec is, pushing buttons. Oh, we have to have someone watching the SIM all the time. Well, you can save some cash by automating it, or automation. So you make a very, very valid point, and that's showing an application, and it also is something that if you can, basically you can capture just about anyone's attention, you know, even if they don't have necessarily an opening, by saying, you know, I can show you how to automate this, and so you can save money. There isn't an organization out there that doesn't want to save money in some way, shape, or form. So thank you for your comment. That's dead on. Anything else? Yes?
Is there any direct sources you would recommend for learning, like YouTube channels or like websites? Yeah.
Certainly. I mean, you know, certainly as a kind of a behind the scenes kind of thing, you know, learning, you know, if it helps you to learn how to set something up, certainly YouTube is a great way to go, or any of the wikis that might be out there that might give you some code, or some of those other areas. So those would certainly be you know, good places to be. And from a couple of presentations ago, if you're in a position where maybe you're going to a wiki of some sort, and very frequently, sometimes, you know, putting stuff in there and leaving, you know, some ideas, codes, or whatever has been successful for you, leaving it there may also create some opportunities to be seen as someone like, oh, here's someone that knows what they're talking about. So, does that help?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Good stuff. All right, well, and the last but not least, shameless plug. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to help you. So thank you for your attention, and I hope this was helpful. Thank you.